Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott, I'm the Emperor of Stomaria, and today I want to talk about intermicronational trade. So, for those that don't know, trying to establish an intermicronational trade network is the purpose of Stomaria's empire. That is the reason that we exist in the way that we do, in that we establish provinces, protectorates, associated states and observer states, and even external allies, in order to build a trade network between all of these different territories, between all these different micronations, in order to reduce reliance on and contributions to the macronations that we're a part of, in our case, the United Kingdom. Now, the reason for this is relatively straightforward. Trying to mitigate our involvement with, in our case, the United Kingdom and the United Kingdom government is about as close, we think, as you can get to a form of de facto independence. So if you're producing your own food, if you're producing your own energy, if you're providing your own water, these sorts of things are a way of taking yourself away from the macronational world. Not in an isolationist way as such, but in such a way that if the macronation, for whatever reason, imploded or dissolved or something catastrophic happened, bar some hostile takeover, you'd be all right. You'd be able to, provide for yourself and for your community. And I think this is, again, probably one of the closest things you can get to establishing a genuine nation state, which would, for most people would effectively boil down to a commune, but with flags and government structures and all the rest of it. A community of people, a group of people that have come together and have decided to do their own thing, to establish their own cultural identities, to establish their own way of doing things. If they, are particularly keen on environmentalism or animal rights or renewable energies or whatever else, there are ways in which you can express yourself and achieve your values and objectives by mitigating your involvement in the macronational world. And this is the sort of mindset of the Empire of Stomaria. Not in a sort of a apocalyptic sense, we don't expect the total collapse of society anytime soon, certainly. But the question has to be asked, if the apparatus of the macronation that we're a part of now disappeared, if the water stopped running, if the shops were empty, there was no food, the power was turned off, what would be our response? Would we be all right? Would we panic because we hadn't prepared ourselves for this sort of situation? And I think that sort of de facto independence on a micronational level is probably quite closely knit to the concept of prepping, the prepping community. Are you ready to look after yourself, to look after your family, to look after your community? Because if the answer is no, then how independent are you from the macronation that you're a part of? And that's the question that we ask ourselves. What more can we do to not cut ourselves off entirely from the macronational world, but mitigate our contributions to and reliance on the macronations that we are a part of in order to attain that sort of independence. If not on a micronational level, then certainly on an individual level. So, like, you know, this is why there's a lot of, I think, crossover between micronationalism and various other topics of interest. So you might have prepping, or you might have off-grid living, or you might have, you know, environmentalist groups or animal rights groups. You might have live action role players, you know, all these different sorts of communities and interests. These sort of overlap in micronationalism. And micronationalism sort of helps to give it that civilization building wrapper. And as I said, what we are looking to do is to establish that trade network between different micronations within the Empire of Stomaria and some external allies as well. Because we're all on the same page. We're all micronationalists. We're all establishing a community, you know, between ourselves, and we're all, you know, producing goods or services to some degree or another in order to support one another, to reduce reliance on the macronations that we're a part of. And I wanted to go over some of the ways in which we have done that, and some of the ways that we are going to continue to do that, what our plans are for the future. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that reducing reliance on the macronations that we're part of, in this case the UK government, we've gone one step further than this, in that we also want to reduce reliance on the fiat currency, in this case the pound sterling, within our respective micronations. And for this to happen, we've utilised the silver Stomarian stater, which is a silver coin that's been minted in order to use as a medium of exchange in the Intermicronational Trade network that we're establishing. So these silver coins can be used as a way to buy goods and services from another micronation. And the reason that we prefer this method over, say, barter is because barter is incredibly inefficient. So to give you a real-world hypothetical example, you have Stomaria, you have Lithua, you have Molossia, you have Wayward, for instance. Let's say Stomaria has potatoes, Lithua has fish, Wayward has eggs, and Lithua has fancy feathers. I want some fish from Lithua. I go and approach them. I say, do you want some potatoes? They say, no, I don't really want potatoes. So I say, okay, fine. I'll go to King Raoul and get some eggs from him, because you don't want potatoes, but you want eggs. That's fine. So I'll go trade some potatoes for eggs. I approach Wayward, and Wayward go, well, actually, we don't want potatoes either, but what we really want is fancy feathers. So I go to Molossia and I go, can I have some fancy feathers? And they go, well, I don't really want potatoes, but okay, that's fine then. I mean, they could, like, if they said no, that'd be it. That'd be no trade could take place whatsoever. But in this instance, let's just say yes, they'll take the potatoes with fancy feathers. So we send the potatoes over to Molossia, they send us fancy feathers, I take those fancy feathers, I go to Wayward, I give them the fancy feathers, they give me the eggs, I take those eggs, I go to Lithua, I give them the eggs, they give me the fish. Not very efficient. But if all of those micronations say that the Stomarian stater, which is a pure silver coin, is a form of legal tender in that micronation, it doesn't matter what products people want and what products people have to trade with, because I could go to any one of those micronations and go, I'll have the fish, I'll have the eggs, I'll have the fancy feathers, don't worry about the potatoes, if none of you want it, that's fine, bam, silver stater, pure silver coin, there, and then exchange the goods that way. And having that suitable medium of exchange is very important. It's a central theme of Stomaria. We abhor like fiat currency, especially micronational fiat currency. When I talk about micronational fiat currency, I am literally talking about people that print off bits of paper at home using the fanciest inks and fanciest papers, and they laminate it and make it all pretty, but it is just worthless bits of paper. If you're willing to trade goods and services for something that someone's printed off at home on their A4 printer, you do you, but I, for one, am not willing to trade goods and services for something that I can print off at home myself if I really wanted to. So that's, that's all by the by. But the reason that we use a silver Stomerian stater is for that reason, because we don't utilize micronational fiat currency because it's absolutely worthless, and we want to reduce reliance on the macronational fiat currency because that too is worthless in the sense that it has no intrinsic value whatsoever, because it's not a commodity money, it's not backed by anything, it's created out of thin air by banks and governments. But it has the advantage of being universally accepted at this time as a form of payment to, pay your taxes or electric bills or whatever else. People know it has, or people accept it has value at the moment. With the way the world is going at the moment, with inflation figures creeping up, with hyperinflation, a distinct possibility in the years and decades to come, and the complete reset of a monetary system on a global scale, barring all that, at the moment it still has purchasing power. So, it's obviously something we still utilise to some extent. But trying to reduce reliance on that by trying to establish an intermicronational trade network that utilises these silver coins, eventually gold coins, that is something that we're striving to do and have been doing on a small scale. And just to touch on that a bit more, we've actually started to organise the production of additional Stomerian staters. And since our trip to the Kingdom of Lithua a few weeks ago, the largest exchange of staters for produce on a micronational level took place in our circle, that is to say. There may well have been a larger exchange at some point in the future for one product or another, but this is the larger exchange of Stomerian staters for produce that's ever happened. So we exchanged 50 staters, which would be 10 stater coins, because each coin is worth 5 staters, for wine and salmon. And again, this is one of the largest exchanges that's taken place so far. We have traded silver for eggs from Wayward, for instance, in the past, and we did exchange a silver Stomerian stater for eggs as well. But now that we own the hens at Wayward, or they've been allocated to us, we no longer need to trade silver for the eggs, so they'll be looking to produce other things at Wayward that we can exchange our silver status for. But the reason I wanted to mention this is because we have created a chart on our website which is going to highlight as best as we can the number of staters that Micronations and Micronationalists that we're aware of have, because it gives a very good indication of how distributed these staters are, how distributed these coins are within the micronational community, within the Stomerian Empire. And this is something that we're very excited about, because Lithua in a single exchange has become the second largest holder of Stomerian staters in the world. And I expect there to be not a rush for the Stomerian stater as such, but I expect it to be more widely distributed and more widely used as time goes on. And the next batch of Stomerian staters that we're ordering will have not just the Kingdom of Wayward design that we have now, but we're also going to be having a second design made as well, a second mould, which is going to be utilised in order to create different denominations. They will all be 5-gram coins, 5 stater coins, but they will feature different micronations and micronationalists on these coins. And going forward, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be highlighting the different micronations and micronationalists involved in the Empire of Stomaria on each of these coins. It's a form of advertisement, as a form of promotion. So that's something that we're very excited about going forward. But as I was saying earlier, the medium of exchange aside, trying to establish this trade network is important. And in the case of the Kingdom of Lithua, for instance, because we purchase the salmon, because we purchase the wine, we don't need to purchase wine or salmon from the Micronation that we're a part of, the United Kingdom. We don't need to go to a store and purchase salmon and wine, because we have it. And we didn't involve the macronational community and the macronational currency in that transaction. So that was fantastic. And, you know, likewise, when Raoul at Wayward creates jams or honey or, you know, sells poultry or whatever else, with the Thua or Slowjamastan or Moreland or Norwick or any of the other external trade partners that we will gradually have and gradually sort of build those relations with, this all just feeds into that narrative, into the keeping ourselves to some extent, in the sense that, you know, as I said, we didn't have to buy wines or salmon for a few weeks because we already had it. Now, if we could replicate that further and we can get our poultry and eggs from Wayward, if someone else is able to supply jams or other preservatives, if someone else is able to provide, you know, other meats or dishes, you know, it will be largely agrarian, I'm sure, this sort of trade relationship initially. But, you know, it will extend further. You might be able to have, you know, micronational furniture, micronational dwellings, micronational services of some description in order to establish these communities. And, no, this is all just a very exciting prospect, because, I mean, there's nothing, you know, if you look around your home, there's nothing there that someone else can't potentially make. I mean, you could make, you know, pens or notepads or, you know, various, maybe even electronics. You know, there are Micronations, Micronationalists out there that have the capacity, that have the knowledge, that have the skill to be able to produce these things. And if we can come together in order to cut out the middleman, if you like, you know, that's the game plan, to just keep ourselves to ourselves in as much as we can, not in an isolationist way, not by cutting ourselves off entirely from the Micronations that we're a part of, but simply by taking those steps to attain that sort of de facto independence. And again, the trade network that we're looking to establish is very much a central core theme of this. It's a core theme of Stomaria. And this is what gives us the sort of the realism, the sort of the genuine look and genuine approach that people can see and appreciate, because we are doing what we said we were going to do. We are achieving what we have said that we had set out to do, and I think this resonates quite well with a sizable swathe of the micronational community, even if they're not looking to do exactly what we're looking to do, and very few actually are, which is make this very, very hard, because the Micronations that we have incorporated into the Empire of Stomaria and the Micronations that we have allied with externally, they're not very numerous. There is a certain type of person, a very certain type of micronationalist that we are willing to formally affiliate with, and we have to be very selective of that, because some people just aren't, you know, in that right place. Some people can't or won't promote what we are promoting and try to achieve what we are trying to achieve. So we have to be very selective on that front. But yeah, I mean, the idea going forward is to build closer ties with additional Micronations in the British Isles and beyond, in order to establish stronger trade links. Now, these might not always be the most efficient trading relationships to start with, but these token gestures are nevertheless very important, because it is often the start of something grander. You know, even though we had half a dozen bottles of wine and a salmon from the Thua, it's possible that going forward we could order even more wines and more salmon from the Thua, and then take those back and then trade some of that salmon with, you know, Raoul or Moreland or whatever else for still Sumerian status, and just sort of distribute it to wider and wider communities, and in a single go. And you know, this is the vision that I have of micronational markets, of Micronations coming together to exchange goods and services with one another without my input, without my involvement, just by having the Stomarian data, because it's been so widely distributed that they can just exchange with one another goods and services without any involvement from the outside world. And that's the vision on one front that I have for Stomaria, that I have for our community. And as I say, the reason for this is simple. It is a way of trying to attain a sort of de facto independence. It is one step in the right direction. And, you know, it's obviously goes far beyond what most micronations do, which is pay lip service to this sort of idea, but then just spend the duration of their 3-month existence arguing with someone over Discord or Reddit or Twitter or something like that. We're far more interested in establishing these real-world communities, these real-world trade networks, and acquiring the territory necessary to produce these goods and to establish these trade hubs and these communities of people. But yeah, I think I've rambled on about this longer than I intended to, but I just get very excited when I think about it, about how we can take this simple idea from a few years ago and put it into practice, put it into action, because we have the status now, we have the people now, we have the territory now, in order to make this happen. But we want it done on a grander scale, on a larger scale. So if there are micronations out there, micronationalists out there that want to become a part of this, then just get in touch and let us know, because we'd be interested in knowing what you have. We'd be interested to know what you can provide, and if you are willing to accept Silver Stomarian status for those goods or for those services, then let us know, because you know this all feeds into what we're trying to achieve. So yes, with that, if you did want to become a part of the Stomarian community, then please feel free to do so through our Patreon campaign, the link of which I shall leave in the description below as always. You can also find the details of the other micronations that are involved in the Empire of Stomaria in the description below as well. But otherwise, if you did enjoy this video, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.